Okay, so the next question to answer is, when we are on site, how do we go about drawing something in perspective from an object that we are looking at in real life? The process is pretty similar for sketching from your brain space versus sketching from sight. So I'll just kind of talk about constructing an object using perspective generally, and you can apply it to both of those processes. I'm gonna put an object image up here for you as reference, and it's gonna be what we're drawing. It's a bus shelter in downtown Edmonton. It is right in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery. And it's really interesting because it looks pretty simple in form, but it's sort of curvilinear in a way that you can sketch it just from looking at it. But if you were to actually kind of construct it using this perspective bounding box that we've been talking about, you can get a sketch that is a little bit more informative than you would otherwise. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm only working off of a couple of images here, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of guesswork, which obviously would be taken out of the equation if you were looking at this object on site there. So we're going to start with a bounding box, just like we did for that chair that we were sketching. So the whole top of the shelter is pretty long, long and narrow. So I'm going to do, I guess I'll make it a little bit bigger. Maybe something like that proportionally. It's not going to be exact, but it'll get the idea across. And then it's got these pillars which are quite tall coming off of the top. So I'll just kind of really lightly make a bit of a box for them, but mostly we're going to be focused on the shape of the roof. So in the back, it's pretty much straight and flat all the way in the back. So we're going to be using this edge for pretty much the whole length of the shelter. And then actually I'm going to draw it just from the top just so we can kind of get a good idea. So it's kind of flat in the back, and then it curves around, and it has like kind of two loops in the front, and then it gets long and skinny and goes around. So that's kind of the shape that we're trying to recreate in perspective here. So if we assume that this is a semicircle, which I didn't draw it as, but that's okay, then we are going to assume that if we make kind of a square down here and a square here, they're going to be parts of a circle, right? So we'll find the center of this square, and you do that by putting a little X through it. And where they cross, that's the center. So now we can make center lines. And now, using those lines, we've got 3 points of this semicircle. Right, so then we've got this flat back, comes into a circle, and its tangents are at the edges here, so we want to make sure that we're making tangents there. There's another tangent here, and we'll say maybe it like pinches into there. Again, that's just kind of a guess. Make a tangent, and then it probably comes into the same depth as it does in this sort of divot, so we'll replicate that. And then it gets kind of long and skinny to the end. It actually might be longer than I drew this bounding box, so we'll extend it out a little bit. And then we've got another curve on the end here, so again, I usually make like a dot where I want it to be a tangent, and that really helps me make that curve nice and even. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So now we've got this sort of, I call it a footprint, but it's hovering in the air. And then we have to decide on a height, and I think I'm still pretty happy with the height that I've kind of sketched in here. So we're going to go with that. So now we want to really lightly project this shape upwards at each of these points. So what we really want to do is do the exact same process, just a little bit higher in the air to kind of duplicate this shape. Okay, pretty happy with that. Now the thing for this is, I'm not going to sketch out all of the different pieces that are coming up, right? Because it's not a solid object. It's got these kind of like planes that are shooting up from it. So I think I'm going to go through that and do that with Sharpie later. You can start to construct where these pillars are at the bottom. Like maybe you want one there. I never take the time to draw the bottoms of things. I tend to just kind of scribble them down. Maybe you have one like in here. Anyways, that's the gist of it. The top part is really the more difficult part to get across, and if you were drawing it from sight, you know, it might look a little bit more compressed like it does in this photograph. You wouldn't really get the sense of that, the shape, you know, as well as you do when you are actually constructing it using a box to kind of understand the shape a little bit better. So to finish this, I mean, I mentioned using Sharpie earlier, but it's just to distinguish some line weights, because I've got some pretty heavy pen work going on in here, right? And then you've got these like vertical planes, and they're gonna look more compressed in certain places and more spaced out in other places. So you can kind of play with using texture to depict an overall pattern. And then you might want to add shadow. If you have a sun over here and it's projecting its rays, then you're going to get this object is going to be projected on the ground farther, basically towards me, closer to where I am. So if I was just going to kind of really loosely do that, I might, you know, draw something like that and give it like a really light hatch with a marker, or yeah, with a pen, you can give it a little hatch. And so that helps things stand out from the ground if you have different colors going on. The final thing that this drawing probably needs is a sense of scale. So I need to put a person or some people in here. And, you know, the text that was recommended to you has a lot of really good precedents for drawing people. I'm pretty bad at it, but I tend to just do like a little circle for a head and then some wide shoulders, and then they're just kind of like scribbled little triangle people. If you are having trouble drawing people and you think it's kind of inhibiting your sketches and you want to practice them later, but you just need to get them in your drawings for this project, never underestimate the power of a stick figure, right? This guy is kind of like, he's kind of nice. He's got like a little form to him, but you know, that shows scale just as well as that does. So Stick figures are also really good if you have like a bench on site and you want to show somebody using it. You can show really easily using a stick figure different joints of the body, which I really like. So yeah, I think they're a really handy drawing tool, and it saves you the time of having to learn right away how to draw, nicer little people to populate your drawings with. Definitely use that while you can. And I think that's pretty much it for drawing and kind of finishing your drawing. If you're having trouble looking at things on site and being able to draw them just by looking at them, there's a couple techniques that you can use if you're not using like a bounding box to kind of construct the object. A good technique is to use your drawing utensil. So if you hold it up at arm's length in the air in front of the object that you are looking at, you can use it to measure things, right? So I can check what maybe the length of it is versus the width. I could do, this is 1 width, 2, 3. So this object is 3 times the length of its width. And you can check angles too, right? Maybe in real life, the way that I'm perceiving this, it looks pretty flat, but actually it's at an angle. If you hold up your drawing utensil, you can see that a little bit more objectively. So that can be a pretty useful little tip.